Okay. Yeah, that was weird and glitchy. So hey everyone, CT here. Welcome to the audio lab. Throughout the month of July, I'm running a little experiment, and I know so many of you love to listen to your books. And since I'm getting ready to eventually record and publish the official audiobook for Brown Beyond Borders, I wanted to practice out loud with you first. So every single day this month, I'm pulling up a chair. I'm reading a few pages of my memoir right here. And if you're on the free list, these daily drops will stay open for just a few days before they head into the archives for my paid subscribers. So make sure you keep up. If you ever miss a session or want to unlock the whole archive to listen at your own pace, you can upgrade to a paid subscription anytime. But for today, let's just hang out and step into chapter 2. So here we go. Chapter 2. Here we go. There you go. Chapter 2. One more time. Chapter 2. Invented Categories, the Fiction of Race. Many parts of the world continue to uphold a legacy of racial categorization with an eye towards maintaining the separation of white and non white identities. In America, this dates back to the 17th century before independence, when laws were formed to protect the purity of the colony's white bloodlines from European influences. Additionally, brown men and women may face discrimination from majority and minority communities, as they are not seen as, quote, authentically, end quote, belonging to either. In contrast, monoracial immigrant youth, while still facing challenges related to their immigrant status, possess a clear sense of cultural identity and belonging within their ethnic community. They are also more readily identifiable as members of a particular racial or ethnic group, offering a sense of solidarity and support, though they may still encounter discrimination and stereotypes. In many parts of the world that to this day prioritize racial categorization towards social and political ends, including the United States, those of us with non white identities oftentimes further box ourselves and each other into these make believe constructs that have very real implications. A biracial Black and Japanese licensed psychologist in New York, Dr. Kalia Castillo says, open quote, being multiracial often means people try to categorize you and then treat you accordingly, end quote. At the time of my writing this, Vice President Kamala Harris, whose father is Jamaican and whose mother is Indian, is campaigning to be America's 47th president. Much of the nation is clamoring to box her into a neat racial category. Is she Black or Asian? More so than it ever did for former President Barack Obama, whose father was Black and mother white. As far as the nation was concerned, Obama was Black. But why can't they be both? Harris, throughout her professional and political careers, has identified with and as both, showing up to serve and participate in both communities. Professor of Anthropology and Associate Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Excellence, and Equity at the University of California, Riverside, Dr. Yolanda T. Moses says in an online article for sapiens.org, open quote, I and other anthropologists have long understood that what we call races are invented categories based on variations in external appearances, close quote. She continues, open quote. Seen from that perspective, it's clear that the one drop rule was purely a social construct, not a biological one. It was designed to make sure that people with Black ancestry, no matter how white they looked, were considered Black and thus kept in an inferior position. It's a clear reminder that while race is not biological, racism and the belief that race is real has devastating social, economic, and political consequences. Given this history, it matters that Harris proudly claims she sees herself as both African American and South Indian, As an anthropologist who studies inequality, I see her self identification as a repudiation of the one drop rule and the unjust racial hierarchy it represents. End quote. Legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term intersectionality. This recognizes that people are not defined by a single identity, but rather by the multiple and overlapping identities we all hold. Introduced by Crenshaw in 1989, this term is particularly crucial for understanding the experiences of biracial and multiracial immigrant youth, whose intersecting identities create a unique and complex web of challenges across race, ethnicity, gender, and immigration status. Most, if not all of which, are rooted in the historical practice of categorizing race into rigid and exclusionary boxes. The intersectionality framework enables us to comprehend the complex realities of being biracial and multiracial in a world that often favors singular categories. While monoracial immigrant youth may face similar challenges related to cultural adjustment and discrimination, their experiences may be less burdened by the complexities of navigating multiple cultural and racial identities. Many brown immigrant youth grew up grappling with questions of belonging, navigating racial ambiguity, and facing pressure to choose one race over another. These unique challenges require a deeper understanding and appreciation of the intersectional nature of our experiences, which is shaped by the dynamic interplay of race, ethnicity, gender, nationality, and immigration status. So there I was, sitting in the passenger seat of a brown Mercedes Benz, stuck in evening traffic next to my boss. I think that went pretty well, don't you think? Yeah, sure, I mumbled, wondering what would be a good segue into I quit. Instead, I dished out some pap like, I think the concept really resonated with them. We had just pitched the mayor's office with a concept to get the word out about the city's plan towards digitalization. They were moving the entire city administration online so citizens could be served online without having to make the trek down to City Hall. But Lenny, he was excited, thrilled even. And he was blathering on in stop and go traffic about what this guy said and what that guy said, and the strong likelihood that they were going to sign us for this high six-figure with seven-figure potential deal. I wasn't listening. My mind was playing back the meeting in slow motion. Back in the conference room, Lenny had done most of the talking. He commanded the room, and I just sat there, except when he asked me to hand out prototypes or show samples we had pulled together for this pitch. So it was startling when one of the city executives in the room stopped Lenny in the flow of his pitch and asked me, "So where are you from?" I was born in Trinidad and I'm Swiss, but I grew up here in Washington. I had already learned to explain why I looked the way I looked, sounded the way I sounded, so this was a well rehearsed response. Oh, whereabouts? Friendship Heights mostly, I said, referring to the metro stop that was closest to my childhood home. But now I live in Silver Spring. All right, he said, nodding approvingly and smiling. Lenny turned towards me, grinning from ear to ear, and let the questions continue. What school did you go to? Boston University. I studied communications and public relations. She also attended Maryland College Park, Lenny piped in, wanting to emphasize my local connections. The city executive looked over at Lenny approvingly and spoke about me as if I wasn't there. She's smart too. Of course, I was used to this. I grew up in a household where the phrase, quote, children should be seen and not heard, end quote, was prevalent. My father used to say that all the time, mostly in jest, of course, but also probably seeing the wisdom of this expression. And I get it. Kids are noisy. He was an academic. He was a Black man working in a white man's corporate world with a quasi diplomatic visa. He was a guest in this great land of opportunity, and so was the family he had brought here. So, for a group of men to speak about me as if I were not in the room was not what irked me that day. It was Lenny. I told you I had found the real deal, Lenny had talked about me with the city executives. Indeed, I knew I was part of the pitch. I was a member of his scrappy little team of four, and my job was to strategize the communications plan and execute the media relations. So my participation in this meeting did not come as a surprise. Still, it was the moment he said the words, "I told you," that it dawned on me why the other two of our four-person team weren't sitting at the conference table that weekday afternoon. I was the only one in Lenny's company with brown skin. I made Lenny's little firm diverse. And over the past few weeks, my job was to develop a public relations plan. I had drafted press releases, prepared media kits, and worked with the firm's in house designer to pull together a splashy look and feel concept briefing. The meeting was the culmination of a few weeks of brainstorming session. There had been a few late nights, the kind where my boss would excitedly order Chinese or pizza while exclaiming, "Yes, we are cranking!" Sitting in that conference room and realizing I was chosen to be there because it helped qualify us as a minority business, not necessarily because our pitch was so amazing, felt like a punch in the gut. The past few weeks, enthusiastic team building gestures, the team pizzas, the rah rah, it wasn't about the work we were doing per se. My brown skin landed him a seat at the table that would qualify his company to pitch for a high six-figure opportunity with the mayor's office. That was it. Pigmentation landed me the job. Landing the job at Lenny's because of my pigmentation would have me brush up my resume, go back to pounding the pavement. I'm pretty sure I had a conversation with friends and family about my decision to move on after having only been there for a few weeks. I had had versions of that conversation before, just not only after only a few weeks. So the dialogue probably included the following exclamations: "But you just started there!" My mom would have said that. She's a white woman born in Europe, married to a black man. Her idea of a happy life is income security. And her greatest fear was probably that I would rejoin the unemployment streak I had endured before joining the boutique firm, which I was already planning to leave. "It can't be that bad. You must be exaggerating." People have said that to me at various times in my checkered employment history during my young professional life. I'm never quite sure which is worse, the downplaying of my feelings or the suggestion that I don't have the faculties to interpret my feelings appropriately. Just stick it out. You don't want to burn your bridges. And while I understand the concept of not wanting to burn bridges, I'm not sure that sticking it out is the best way to go about terminating a bad situation. The suggestion favors the known bad situation over the unknown, potentially good situation. And when I would come across a problem that I knew I was no longer able to sustain, I tended towards the band aid approach: rip it off. I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm just saying it's been my way. Looking back, talking to mostly white friends and family about my feelings after that pitch was a waste of time. My mind had already been made up. I was going to leave the boutique. I felt undervalued, serving the team as a token. Lenny may have recognized my smarts and appreciated my contributions, but at that time, I felt like I had been recruited for some circus act under the guise of something else entirely. Should I have ignored the shame I felt for having my brown skin paraded by a white man before a room full of African American city employees? Should I have heeded the lessons I had been learning all my life about being a gracious guest in someone else's home? Was I wrong about the sense of betrayal I felt? And that is where we're stopping for today. If you have a question about the book, the writing process, or anything we covered in today's segment, drop it in the comments of this post. I might just answer yours on a future episode. I am really glad I get to share this unedited process with you. Look out for the next pages in your inbox tomorrow morning. And if you know someone who would connect with this part of the journey, please share this post with them while it's still open to the public. And if you want to support this audio experiment and my writing as I start drafting book 2, consider becoming a paid subscriber to unlock everything. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you tomorrow.